What's up, everyone? And today I'm doing a deck profile on my Rikka Fairy Sun Avalon deck. Yes, some new support has come out for Rikka Fairy, and since my last Sun Avalon deck, it's also had some support. And you can actually mix the two decks together now. So without further ado, let's get right into it. First, I run 3 Rikka Petal. Rikka Petal, during your main phase, you can take 1 Rikka monster from your deck, except Petal, and either add to your hand or send to the graveyard. And while this card is in your graveyard, if you control no monsters or all monsters you control are plant monsters, you can special summon this card. It does lock into plants, but we really only play plants, so that's not really much of a downside at all. It's definitely one of your starters, more or less. Also run 2 Mudon. You tribute 1 plant monster, special summon this card from your hand. If it's normal special summoned by the effect of a plant monster, you can add 1 Rikka spell trap from your deck to your hand. Also run the 2 Rikka Princess. Rikka Princess can special summon itself from the field during the main phase. And as an additional effect, when your opponent activates a monster effect while you control a Rikka monster, quick effect, you shuffle this card from your hand or graveyard into the deck, tribute 1 plant monster, negate that effect. So it's essentially kind of like a hand trap that also works in the grave as well, which can come up in certain scenarios because most likely it's going to end up in the grave. So it gives you a little bit of disruption. Also run 2 Primula. If a monster you control is tributed, you special summon this card from your hand. Then you target 2 plant monsters you control, increase their levels by 2. You really use it only for the free summon, more so, although raising the levels can also help as well, considering you do want to go into a rank 8 in the teardrop. But I have a snowdrop here. I run 1 snowdrop of the Rikka Fairy. Snowdrop, you contribute 1 plant monster, special summon this card, and 1 other plant monster from your hand. Although you cannot special summon for the rest of the turn except plant monsters, which you're already not going to be able to through the petal. You get locked into plants, so. This has an additional effect. You target 1 plant monster you control. All plant monsters you currently control become that monster's level until the end of this turn. So if you got a 4, a 6, or an 8, you essentially make all monsters that level. You really want to be going into 4 or 6, or 4 and 8 because we don't run the rank 6. Also run 3 Lonefire Blossom. 3 copies of any card. Or 3 more copies of any card. Considering all you gotta do, you contribute it, summon a plant from deck. And that's not almost per turn, so you can go Lonefire into Lonefire into Lonefire, and then into something. I also run the 2 Sunseed Genius Loki, and the 1 Sunseed Twin for the Sun Avalon engine. The Sun Avalon engine's very small, but both sides are very powerful, because essentially you're able to take the best of both, like the Teardrop and the Sun Avalon Bloom. And I also run 2 Ghost Spell for hand traps. For spells, I run 3 Rikka Con. Pretty weird name. If you control a Rikka monster, you'd set 1 Rikka spell trap directly from your deck. And it has a really cool additional effect. To once per turn, if you attribute a plant monster you control to activate a Rikka card effect, you attribute 1 face-up monster your opponent controls even though you don't control it. So it's a little bit of disruption going second, and obviously for the Rikka Sheet, which is the trap that tributes a Rikka as cost. So that allows you to turn that negative into a disruption for your opponent. I run 3 Rikka Glamour. Unfortunately, I still don't have any copies of it. When you activate this card, you can also tribute 1 plant monster. Add 1 Rikka monster from your deck to your hand, and if you tribute a monster, when you activate this card, add 1 plant monster with the same original level as that Rikka monster, but a different name. So it searches, and if you, depending on what you tribute as costs, you can add 1 plant monster that's a non-Rikka monster. So you can grab Lonefire, Loki, whatever you want. Also run the 1 Sunvine Sowing. Sowing allows you to special summon 1 Sunseed monster from your deck, and if you do, take 1000 damage. But if you control no Sun Avalon Link monsters, you can only summon Genius Loki. So if you have a Sun Avalon if you have a Sun Avalon Link monster on the field, then you can go for any one of your Sun Avalon monsters or Sunseed monsters. So that could also go for the Twin. I also run 3 Unexpected Die to help get that Loki out to the field, because you definitely do want the Loki on the field. It definitely does make your plays a lot weaker if you don't have it, because the whole Sun Avalon engine revolves around Loki. I also run 3 Triple Tactics Talents. Definitely a pretty good card this format, as well as 3 Dark Ruler No More. I also run the 1 for 1, because we got like multiple level 1s. You got the Petal and the Loki. And a Call by the Grave to help against hand traps or just hurt your limits. Moving on to traps, I run the 1 Rikka sheet. Sheet, you can tribute 1 face-up monster opponent controls. Also, if you tribute 1 plant monster, players cannot activate that face-up monster's effects on the field this turn. If you tribute a monster when you activate this card effect, take control of that monster until the end phase. If you do, it becomes a plant monster until the end phase. So that's one of your disruptions, as well as the Sunavalon Bloom. If you, when this card is activated and you control a Link 4 or higher plant monster, when this effect resolves, negate the effects of all face-up monsters your opponent currently controls. So that's definitely really good. Like, let's say they got 3 monsters on the field. You can activate Bloom, which can then negate all of them. So it's kind of like a Harpy's Feather Duster. Or not Feather Duster, Feather Storm. And also run 2 Imperm to kind of help things out. Moving on to the extra deck, I run 3 Rikka Queen Strana. Strana is definitely really good and can be used in multiple different ways. First off, you can detach 1 material from this card, then target a plant monster or 1 Rikka card in your graveyard, add to your hand. And if this card with an XYZ material is tributed, you can special summon 1 rank 5 or higher plant XYZ monster from your extra deck. Then you can attach this to it as material, which will basically be the Teardrop. Teardrop requires 2 level 8 monsters. You can detach 1 material from this card and target 1 monster on the field, tribute it. This is a quick effect if this card has a plant monster as material, which it's going to have because we don't want anything but plants. And once per turn, each time a monster tributed, this card gains 200 attack for each. So this basically has as many effects as materials. So if you bring it out normally, you will have 2. If you bring it out through the Strana, you'll have 1 negate, or 1 disruption. Next, we run 3 Sunavalon Dryas. Dryas is definitely very useful for the Sunavalon combo. Requires a level 4 or lower plant monster. If this card is link summoned in the extra monster zone using Genius Loki, you can add 1 Sunavalon spell trap from deck to your hand. So it can get you either the Bloom or the Sowing. You're usually going to go for Sowing first because sometimes you may not be able to make the Sunavalon link 4. And if you do, Bloom's not really going to be all that helpful. Plus, the link 4 can search it from the deck, so you definitely want to grab the Sowing off of this. Also run 1 Sunvine Healer. Can get you some life points. Also run the 1 Sunavalon Dryades. Up to twice per turn, if you take the battle or effect damage, you can gain that much life points instead, and if you do, special summon 1 Sunvine monster from your extra deck. Aka the Healer, because that's the only Sunvine we run. Also run 2 Sylvan Densifion. If this card is link summon, you can choose a number from 1 to 3 and activate that many cards. And if you do, you special summon up to 2 activated plant monsters, but they cannot be used as link material. I also run 1 Melius. Usually what you do is you'll go into one of the link 2s, then you'll go into Melius, which will then revive the Loki to go into the link 4. So Melius is more or less just the gateway for that. I also run 1 Orlumistary Jasmine. It's really good in any plant strategy, as well as the 1 Bankalancer, the Resurgent, and Sunavalon Dryan Trentiary. Dryan Trentiary, I'm just going to call it Drya because that's hard to say every time. If this card is linked summon, you can add 1 Sunavalon spell trap from your deck to hand. And this card cannot be destroyed by your opponent's card effects and cannot be targeted for attacks. But of course, your opponent can still attack directly. Once per turn, you can tribute 1 link monster as the card points to. Destroy any number of cards your opponent controls up to that monster's link rating. So definitely a card you do want to end on. You can use it to grab Bloom, negate during your opponent's turn, and then just wrap things up on the following turn. So what do you think of my Rikka Fairy Sunavalon deck? I think it's pretty cool. Let me know in the comments and I'll see you in the next video I make. Bye.